90% of my last year's income. You may have read in the Chronicle about the police officer last year who earned $516,000 in 1 year. My God, that's more than the President of the United States earned. And he retired at age 56 with a $240,000 a year pension for the rest of his life. And that comes out to about an $8.5 million payout. And he's not the exception. There are 100 other top paid police officers who earn an average of $241,000 a year. Now, I work in the criminal justice system. I have the ultimate respect for police officers and firefighters who put their life on the line every day. Yet, how much can we afford to pay? How much can we afford to pay when for the first time in our city's great history, we canceled summer school for the kids? Why? Because we didn't have $4 million for 10,000 kids to attend summer school. Yet we spent over 100 times that on retiree pensions and health care premiums alone. Our parks budget was slashed by 50%. That's right, folks, 50% last year. You'll find, as you go to these little centers that are near our parks, those are now being rented. They're being rented. They're charging people to use our public parks. You go some places in the city, you will find parking meters that go until 9 o'clock. They just installed 1,500 of these 2 weekends ago. This is San Francisco. $80 parking tickets, smart meters downtown, $18 an hour. You can't turn around without somebody picking your pocket in this town. That's not the San Francisco that, as a West Side resident, I have come to love and want to spend my life in. And I know a lot of you feel that same way. And that's why 49,000 people signed a petition to put Proposition B on the ballot. Now, Proposition B doesn't take away anybody's retirement pension. No, it doesn't do that. Okay? It doesn't cut off anybody's health care. What it does, it requires all city employees to contribute towards their pensions. As an elected official, like all elected officials, including the mayor, we do not pay towards our pensions. Under Prop B, I would have to pay 9%. Let me tell you, my wife wasn't happy about that. He said, "What do you mean? You're going to have to pay more?" I said, "Yes." And that's something that I'm willing to do as a city employee, and I believe many others should be willing to do. Why? Because it's an investment in our future. I mean, if you're a private sector employee, you're lucky if you get a 401k. When your 401k went down 30% in 2008, the city's pension fund went down as well. The difference is, under the city charter or constitution, when the fund goes below 97%, guess what? The taxpayers have got it going up. And every year, it's going up and up and up. Just on the pension side alone, 5 years ago, we were paying $175 million for pension and health care premiums for retirees. This year, according to the controller, again, these are not my numbers. These are directly from the controller. It was close to $400 million. What about the health care costs that Shirley mentioned? How much are we spending there? These are just numbers, so they may not mean anything, but it's $456 million for a year. For 26,000 city employees, 28,000 retirees, and 47,000 dependents. Okay? Somebody had mentioned, I think Shirley had mentioned that up until a couple of years ago, you worked for the city for 5 years, and you got lifetime retirement benefit. That's a great thing. Wish we could do that for everybody. The problem is, we can't afford it. We couldn't afford it then. According to the city's actuary, that's the folks who figure out what long-term liabilities are, get this, we owe $4 billion in unfunded health care coverage for city employees. $4 billion. And that's a number that's so big, it's hard to even imagine. But the equivalent is, if you had a credit card that you owed $10,000 on, you lost your job, you're charging $5,000 a month, and you can't even afford to make the minimum payment. That's what's happening in San Francisco. We can't even afford to pay the premiums So we're kicking over $300 million a year. Now, Proposition B is not going to solve all of these problems, but it's going to be an important first step. Most of us aren't even aware. I wasn't aware until about a year ago. Why did I get involved? I saw the public defender's budget being cut year after year after year. I was wondering, where's the money going? And I saw that all this money was going to these benefits. But the scary thing is that that number is going to double, according to the controller, in the next 5 years, both on the healthcare side and on the pension side. So we need to do something, and we need to do something now. This is not something that can wait. We can't kick the can down the road. Look at what's happened in California. This is an opportunity for us to correct this. And I understand that city employees don't want to pay more. I get that. But we have to do what's right, not for just one group of people, not for just 6% of our workforce. We have to think about the other 94% of the hard-working men and women in the city. We have a 10% unemployment rate. The poverty rate is soared. You probably saw the report that came out a couple of weeks ago. We have the worst economic recession, right? And it's not fair. It's not fair that I can knock on your door and say, sir, I don't know if you're a city employee, sir,
DG&E.
But, you know, it's not fair that I should be able to ask my neighbor to pay for my pension, to pay for my health care costs. You know, if you work for the city, and you're a city employee, you don't pay anything for your own health care. The private sector, you're lucky. You're lucky if they pay part of your health care. Under Proposition B, under the basic plan, the city employee would pay $8 a month. Now, you're going to hear complaints about that from city employees, but let me tell you, if I advertise right now and we're giving full health care coverage for $8 a month, you'd have a line from here to San Jose. Remember San Jose, they laid off 50 firefighters because of their pension problem. In Oakland, they laid off 80 police officers in Oakland, California. Why? Because they didn't want to contribute 9% into their pensions. Can you think of a worse place in the world where they could afford to lose 80 police officers? So the whole point of this is that we don't want to wind up like Vallejo. This is a moderate step. It is a reasonable step towards making change. And this is the kind of measure that has to come from the people. People say, well, why didn't you negotiate it with the labor leaders? Because I see what happened in the past when you try to work on this problem. Nothing gets done. They can't just get kicked down the road even further. This so-called pension reform measure that was on the ballot, Supervisor Ellsberg put on, he ended up taking his name off it. Why? Because they ended up adding a raise in it for city employees. Proposition B, that supposedly fixed our health care system, they put a raise on the pension side that, according to the grand jury report that came out this year, is going to cost taxpayers even more. So I realized early on that that was not going to happen. That the only way to make this happen was to bring this to the people. And so I asked for support. Oh, and made our case. Made our case to the people. Michael Moritz, who was here, supported this measure, and he's been criticized that somehow, because of the resources that he brought to it, that he is, out to destroy the working people of San Francisco. Just the opposite. He has no reason to get involved in an issue like this, except that he cares. He cares about what's happened to San Francisco. It's his home, and he wanted to make a difference. And so he supported getting this measure on the ballot. But now, we have nothing close to the resources that our opponents have. I understand that there's been $1 million pledged, and that there's going to be another $2 million pledged to defeat this measure. You've already gotten probably 4 mailers. We're not going to have this kind of resources, but I believe we have the better case. And so I ask for your support. I ask you to talk to your neighbors about Proposition B, and I look forward to answering any questions that you have.
I should have said it earlier, my bad. No applause till the end. And now, you better applaud at the end here. So, are you ready to load?
I'm loaded.
You all set?
Yeah, I'm loaded.
Tim, are you good to go?
I'm good anytime.
Okay. Here's the distinguished head of labor in San Francisco. We're honored to have him here to spend his evening.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having me here. This is the first time I've actually been inside this Bernard Maybach building. I was actually wondering if this was part of the park system. I was told that it's a private house, and I come out of the Bricklayers and Tilelayers Union, so I like this Flemish bond and the stonework that I see on here that probably 2 generations ago my predecessors put on. But I'm here, and we've been talking to different clubs in different areas in town, for the last month or so, and I just want to say that Measure B is a poorly written piece of legislation. It doesn't do what it's going to say that it's going to do, and it frankly has nothing to do with pension, when it really comes down to it. It has nothing to do with pension. What this is ultimately, and like I said before, I don't know who the hell wrote this thing. The judge has already thrown out part of the pieces in here because it's so poorly written. But basically what it is, it's an attack on the health care of public sector workers. That is essentially what it is. 70% of the so-called savings that are coming into this piece are attacks on healthcare. You take a $50,000, $45,000 nursing assistant, or you take a custodian that works in the city that makes that amount of money, who already pays $8,100 some dollars a month. If you have a child, if you're a single parent with a child, and you're paying, and these are the facts from the health plan, if you're paying $8,100 a month right now, you're going to end up paying another $5,000 a year. $8,100 a year, you're paying another $5,000 a year as you move forward. That is basically what it is. 70% of what is in that bill is moving forward to take care of health care. This is the city of health care. That is where we're moving forward. If you talk to the director, the new director who took it over for Claire Murphy in the pension department right now, when I met him a few weeks ago, he said, "Tsunami, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard of. This is the most well-funded pension fund of any major city in the United States. This is not Vallejo. This is not San Diego. This is not the other cities. This is a well-funded pension fund that's moving forward." Wall Street created some horrible problems at the state level and at the city level for so many years right now. Workers aren't working any less hard, but there's definitely some structural deficits because of what happened in Wall Street. And all the estimates, Mayor Newsom said there's so many holes in the grand jury report, he hasn't got time to talk about all of them, and I don't have more than a few minutes to talk about them. But one of them is that all the numbers that came out of there were all based on the Lehman Brothers piece when everything was down. All actuarial stuff that was taken care of and talked about was all based on what happened, whatever it was, 2 years ago when the market crashed. I don't know how many of you have your own personal portfolios or other pension funds. I have a bunch of defined pension funds because I've worked in various places. These things are all moving back into the right direction. Okay? There is some structures. That's why there's